Well, when I tell young women in particular, when they ask me about work-life balance, I tell them there's no such thing as work-life balance. It's a lie, and it's a lie that is perpetuated in a way that is harmful, especially to young women in the workplace. As if you can do everything. You cannot. There are not enough hours in the day. In my book, I talk about this, how I broke down on the campaign trail as I was running for Senate, because when I was, I had to decide to run for the Senate when I was on maternity leave. And when I was doing my job as in on the campaign trail and as a congresswoman, I felt that I wasn't doing right by my baby daughter. And when I was with my daughter, I felt like I was letting down my campaign and my donors and my supporters. I should be working harder as a candidate. And I finally broke down. And I luckily have a lot of women on my team, and they just said, Tammy, there's no such thing as work-life balance. And that's when you know, looked back to my Army training. And in the Army, we have what's called the 80% solution. You would think that in the Army, if you try to plan a mission, you want to plan it to be the perfect mission so that nothing will go wrong. But in fact, the Army plans for the 80% solution and starts movement and start doing the mission. And that way you adjust fires as needed to complete the mission. But if you spent all your time planning, you would never be able to execute the actual mission. It could never actually happen. And so I go with the 80% solution. There are days when my girls, when I pack their lunch in the morning, they're not going to get, a nice note from me and my mommy made everything. They're going to get a Lunchable and a juice box and maybe a Rice Krispie treat. It's all prepackaged, and it's not the way, I would rather it be, but that's what they're going to get. There are times when they're going to go to bed in leggings and a sweatshirt because that's what they're wearing to school tomorrow. But hey, they're dressed and they're on
Yeah.
the school bus, right? The other thing, aside from, my girls, was the fact that accepting the 80% solution in my life was forcing the people that I work with to accept the parameters of my being in the workplace. And that meant that when I got pregnant with my second daughter, it took 9 months, not just for the pregnancy, but to negotiate being allowed to bring her onto the floor, because in the Senate, you have to be on the floor physically to vote. There's no remote voting. And so I knew I couldn't vote because the only way for me to vote, the only path for me to get to where I could do my thumbs up or thumbs down, the only accessible way that I could go with my wheelchair was to physically be on the floor. And I couldn't leave my baby outside, and I couldn't leave, and I was breastfeeding at the time. So it took 9 months of negotiations, but 10 days after I gave birth, I brought my baby daughter onto the floor to vote because they needed my vote.